Ah, shame. Grab your co-ex-sisters and rebos mensi. The drama on Soapie this July, it's hotter than a Karubrai in December. Secrets are exploding like overripe grapes. Marriages are cracking worse than drought-stricken earth. And that snake Alistair? He's coiled tight, ready to strike. If you miss these episodes, Votsek, sit back. Let me tell you exactly how the Donda hit the fan. And hey, if this yarn gives you Kiri, show some love. Hit subscribe, smash that like button, maybe even chuck us a super thanks donation. Every bit helps keep these stories coming. Let's dive in. Tuesday, 1st July 2025, episode 42. Tjoppie was already feeling cack suspicious, see? Like a tick on a sheep.
Then Blixem, he overhears Veronique whispering sweet nothings on the phone. Not to him.
That suspicion turned into a cold dread sitting heavy in his gut. He followed her scent like a bloodhound, right into Franschhoek town, and Sjo, there she was, locking lips with some fancy oak outside a boutique hotel. Sandy, bless her heart, chose that exact moment to start poking her nose into Veronique's sudden shopping trips, asking questions that made Veronique smile tighter than a new pair of Elskin. Meanwhile, Tozema and Kobani dropped their bombshell. They're tying the knot properly this time. Down in Berg Valley, Clayton nervously told Edmund about Cooley's offer to buy into his struggling new wine venture. Edmund just looked grim, like he'd swallowed a sour pip. Gershwin, driving past the winelands, spotted Veronique's flashy car parked somewhere very suspicious, adding fuel to his confused feelings. And poor Hermione? Locked up and alone, she faced a vicious shove from Crystal in the prison corridor. A stark reminder her nightmare was far from over. Wednesday, 2nd July 2025, episode 43. Tjoppie was steamed. That kiss burned in his brain hotter than brandy. He stormed back to Soapie, ready to tear strips off Veronique. He barged into their room, ranting and raving, only to find it empty. He tore through drawers looking for anything, proof lies he didn't even know. Suddenly the door clicked. Veronique stood there, cool as a cucumber, holding shopping bags. "Looking for something, scat?" she purred, her eyes like ice. Tjoppie's anger choked him. He had nothing solid, just that gut-wrenching image. Over at Shireen's practice, things were awkward with Clayton. That easy comfort was gone, replaced by a stiff politeness. "Is this us still okay?" Clayton finally asked, his voice tight. Shireen fiddled with her stethoscope, avoiding his eyes. Edmund, drowning his own sorrows, cornered Nena. "Tell me the truth, Ma," he slurred, his eyes red-rimmed. "About Pa, about everything you never said." Nena just clasped her hands, her face a mask of old pain. Back in prison, Hermione's fragile friendship with Crystal shattered completely when Crystal snarled, "Stop looking at me like I'm your ma, you mad tronk." Thursday, 3rd July 2025, episode 44. Strangely, seeing Tjoppie so consumed by his own secret misery eased Hermione's constant prison panic a bit. It was like his visible torment mirrored hers, a twisted connection across the bars. She wasn't alone in her silent suffering anymore. Edmund, finally sober enough to string two thoughts together, tracked Shireen down. No accusations, just raw honesty. "I'm broken, Shireen," he admitted, the fight gone out of him. "Charlie's gone. Us. It's gone. I can't do this anymore." Shireen, tears welling, just nodded. A sad final understanding passed between them. In Berg Valley, Joyce had had it with Gershwin mooning over Veronique and getting tangled in her messy life. "Open your dof eyes, boy," she yelled, whacking him with a dishcloth. "That woman is trouble wrapped in designer silk. She'll chew you up and spit you out. Think of your family, Mency." Friday, 4th July 2025, episode 45. Edmund dropped his bomb at the workers' meeting. Voice flat, eyes dead, he announced he was selling his share of Soapie and leaving the winelands, just like that. The stunned silence was thicker than pap. Sandy gasped. Joey looked like he'd been punched. Nena closed her eyes in despair. Clayton, seeing Shireen's devastation, gently touched her arm. "Life moves on, Shireen," he murmured, not unkindly. "Don't let his choices freeze you in place." Alistair, lurking in the city, heard about CJ's little bar fight caused by Elroy winding him up, and smirked. "Time to teach that droll Elroy some respect," he told his thug. Marco felt the ground shift under his feet. His dad, Tjoppie, was distant, jumpy, muttering about betrayal. The solid family Marco knew felt like it was crumbling. And Tozama? She wasn't wasting time. Cornering Kobani, she hissed, "The will, Leafy, sign it, everything to our boys, Unati and Atandwa, make it official, now." Monday, 7th July 2025, episode 46. Tjoppie couldn't hold it in anymore. He cornered Veronique in the cellar, the smell of oak and secrets thick in the air. "Who is he?" he demanded, his voice trembling with rage and something else. "Hurt. That Popol you kissed? How long?" Veronique's mask slipped for a second, pure shock flashing across her face. She hadn't expected him to know. Her recovery was swift, icy denial, but the crack was there. Joey and Nena, watching the chaos unfold, Edmund leaving, Tjoppie cracking, Veronique scheming, shared a worried look over their morning coffee. "This farm," Joey sighed, "it needs a captain, a steady hand. Ours are busy drowning." Napoleon, sharp as a tack, was the only one still giving Tozama the side-eye. While everyone else toasted the engagement, he watched her like a hawk, seeing the calculation behind her smiles. Alistair, meanwhile, was putting CJ through his paces, darker tasks, testing his loyalty. "Time to step up, Boaty," Alistair grinned, handing him a sealed envelope. "Deliver this, no questions." Tuesday, 8th of July 2025, episode 47. Tjoppie was reeling again. A letter arrived, from prison. Hermione, in her shaky handwriting, begged him to take charge of Soapie. "You're the only one with a clear head left, Tjoppie," she wrote. "Save our home." The weight of it, the trust, felt like a physical blow. Veronique, nursing her own shock from the confrontation, sat alone in her lavish bedroom. The expensive perfume, the jewelry, it all felt hollow. The mistakes, the lies, the kiss. They piled up, a suffocating mountain of regret. Shireen, trying to grasp some happiness, went on a picnic with Clayton. They talked deeply about loss, about fear, about maybe a future. It felt fragile but real. Back in Group Boomville, Tozama vanished. No note, no call, just gone. Kobani paced, worried sick. Unati and Atandwa exchanged uneasy glances. Something wasn't right. Wednesday, 9th July 2025, episode 48. Fueled by Hermione's plea and his own boiling anger, Tjoppie snapped. He called a farm meeting. Workers, family, everyone. Standing tall, though his eyes were shadowed, he declared, effective immediately, "I'm running Soapie. Veronique, she handles the restaurant, that's it. We are not a team, not anymore." The finality in his voice silenced the room. Veronique looked like she'd been slapped. Later, drowning her sorrows at Dijart, she poured her heart out to Joyce. "Power? Love? Ah, Joyce, what's the point?" She slurred, the vulnerability shocking. "I built an empire, but it's all ashes. Do I fight for that Dom man, or do I fight for me?" Alistair tightened his grip on CJ, dragging him deeper into his criminal world. "This is your inheritance now, boy," he sneered. "Forgiveness? That ship sailed." Clayton, kneeling awkwardly by the vineyard, finally blurted out to Shireen, "I love you. Properly, madly. Is there space for me?" The group booms, frantic, reported Tozama missing to a disinterested constable. Thursday, 10th July 2025, episode 49, Fear bit at Veronique. With Tjoppie's coldness and Alistair circling like a vulture, she felt trapped. Desperate, she spun a lie for Gershwin, who'd come sniffing around. "Tjoppie's losing it," she whispered, eyes wide with manufactured terror. "He's going to sell the farm out from under us. We need a plan." "Your help." CJ pumped up on Alistair's toxic talk. confronted Elroy in a grimy alley. "You think you can mess with me, droll?" CJ shoved him hard against a brick wall. "I'm a Moraes, you're nothing." Elroy's fear curdled into something darker. "You'll see," he spat. "You'll see what nothing can do." Shireen practically glowed with a cautious happiness after Clayton's declaration. Unati's phone buzzed, a blocked number. "Unati?" Tozama's voice, thick with tears, whispered, "Help me. He's got me." Friday, 11th July 2025, episode 50. Gershwin puffed his chest out, convinced Veronique needed him to be her knight in shining armor against the unhinged Tjoppie. "Leave it to me," he boomed. Joyce, scrubbing the bar, rolled her eyes so hard it hurt. "Gershwin, my son," she sighed. "You're looking at the fire, not the arsonist. That woman is the trouble." Tjoppie's behavior was getting seriously weird. He'd be raging one minute, then spaced out the next. Marco watched him pop pills like fizzers, a knot of worry tightening in his chest. CJ overheard Alistair viciously threatening Elroy over a botched job. He kept quiet, storing the information, a flicker of something. Fear, strategy, in his eyes. Clayton took Shireen to a quiet cemetery. He stopped at a small, well-kept grave. "My son, Ethan," he said softly, his voice rough. He was 6. Leukemia.
It's the first time since...
Shireen squeezed his hand, understanding dawning. Later, a haggard woman arrived at Kobani's door, clutching a shawl. "Tozama, she owes my brother money," she rasped. "Big money. She said you'd pay. Said you were rich now." Monday, 14th July 2025. Episode 51. Tjoppie's head was pounding, a deep, insistent throb that made his vision blur. He fumbled in his pocket, found the little bottle of pills, then threw it across the room. Nay, not again. He needed a clear head, even if the pain was blinding. CJ, buzzing with restless anger after the encounter with Elroy, demanded Alistair let him go back to Soapie's kloof. "I need to see her, confront her." Alistair just laughed. "Too risky, Boaty, stay put." Elroy, overhearing, sneered. "Scared, brew? I'll go rattle her cage for you." Debbie Lee nearly dropped her coffee cup when Sandy casually mentioned Clayton's late son, Ethan, that depth of pain. It changed things. Kobani sat Unati and Atandwa down. The woman's words, Tozama's desperate call, it painted a picture of a stranger. "This woman," Kobani said heavily, "this isn't the Tozama I thought I married." Tuesday, 15th July 2025, episode 52. Junior's car screeched up the driveway, unexpected and urgent. He found Veronique first, looking strangely pleased with Tjoppie's distracted state. "Ma, what's happening with CJ?" Junior demanded, ignoring her small talk. "Where is he? What mess has he gotten into now?" Veronique's smile vanished. Sandy, looking for a spare corkscrew in Edmund's nearly empty cottage, opened a drawer and found Debbie Lee's torn blouse, the one she was wearing the night Elroy took her. Beneath it, a crumpled, unused police report form. Sandy's blood ran cold. Confronting Debbie Lee, the truth came out in tearful hiccups. She'd never reported Elroy. Kobani, armed with names and places from Unati, confronted the seedy underbelly Tozama was entangled with. The truth was ugly. Gambling debts, loan sharks, a life built on lies. Wednesday, 16th July 2025, episode 53. Marco finally voiced his terror to Junior. "Pa, the pills. He's taking so many. Morning, noon, night. He's not himself." Junior frowned, a new worry adding to his load. Veronique, cornering Elroy near the workers' cottages, hissed a venomous threat. "Breathe a word about CJ or me to anyone and you'll disappear. Permanently." Elroy paled but held her gaze. At the restaurant, CJ, fueled by cheap wine and Alistair's poison, made a scene, yelling for Dawn. A name that meant nothing to anyone but made him look wildly unstable. Tjoppie, trembling slightly, eyes too bright, grabbed his baki keys. He was going to find that popol who kissed his wife. Junior, trying to calm the restaurant chaos, overheard CJ drunkenly slur. Alistair says the farm will be mine, all mine. He'll make it happen. Junior felt sick. Meanwhile, Tjoppie's erratic vineyard decisions accidentally landed Soapie a prestigious international order. A cruel twist. Thursday, 17th July 2025, episode 54. Marco pulled Junior aside near the stables, desperation in his voice. Uncle Junior, you have to talk to Pa. It's the pills. He's addicted, I think. He's falling apart. Joyce watched Gershwin polish the same glass for 10 minutes, a dreamy look on his face, no doubt picturing himself as Veronique's savior. That boy's heading for a Merce heartbreak, she muttered to Brenda. CJ, back at Alistair's lair, was chillingly clear. My parents? They're weak. Finished. You understand power, Alistair. When the farm is mine, you'll get your cut. Alistair, fed up with Elroy's incompetence and big mouth, delivered a brutal warning punctuated by a fist to the gut. Clayton, bumping into Debbie Lee at the farm shop, surprised her. About Shireen, it's serious. I thought you should know. I'm all in. Friday, 18th July 2025, episode 55. Love triangles are messy, nay? Veronique playing Gershwin, Gershwin dreaming of Veronique, Tjoppie drowning his pain. It was a recipe for disaster. Alistair decided Elroy was more trouble than he was worth. Get rid of him, he told CJ casually, permanently. CJ's eyes widened, but he nodded slowly, thinking fast, how to look loyal without actually crossing that line. Patricia, Alistair's scorned ex, got her revenge, leaking damning financial info to his rivals. Instead of crumbling, it just made Alistair's eyes gleam with a bigger, more dangerous plan. Clayton and Shireen's newfound bliss shattered during a stupid argument about Edmund. Harsh words flew. You're still hung up on him, Clayton yelled. Shireen slammed the door. The Kobani, reeling from the Tazama revelations, worked frantically to salvage his son's inheritance from the debt she'd buried them in. Monday, 21st July 2025, episode 56. Tjoppie's pill-fueled decisions hit everyone's pocket. He impulsively sold a prime parcel of land to a dodgy developer for quick cash, shocking Veronique and infuriating the workers who farmed it. Veronique was momentarily stunned when Gershwin presented her with a cheap, heartfelt protection charm, such a stark contrast to her cold world. CJ flat out refused Alistair's direct order to eliminate Elroy. Not yet, CJ argued, trying to sound strategic, not scared. He's still useful. Clayton, fed up with Tjoppie's unreliability and the farm's toxic atmosphere, told Tjoppie bluntly, I'm done. The wine competition? You're on your own. I'm leaving Soapie. Marco, desperate to save his brother, tracked CJ down at Alistair's place. CJ, please, Marco begged, tears in his eyes. Come home. This isn't you. This path, it ends in trunk or a coffin. Tuesday, 22nd July 2025, episode 57. Debbie Lee watched Tjoppie fumble with his keys, his hands shaking, sweat beading on his forehead. Despite the cool morning, that wasn't stress, it was withdrawal. Her concern deepened into real fear. Love confessions aren't always welcome. Gershwin's clumsy attempt to tell Veronique he cared was met with a dismissive flick of her wrist. Don't be ridiculous, Gershwin. Focus on the job. CJ, under Alistair's watchful eye, made a delivery to the restaurant, forced to interact with Veronique and Tjoppie. The coldness in his parents' eyes cut deep, but he maintained his tough guy facade. Jan, Hermion's brother, arrived back unexpectedly, whispering plans for a surprise to help Hermion's case. Hermione, during a prison visit, urgently warned Jan, be careful of Tjoppie. He's not well. And the truth, it's too dangerous right now. Wednesday, 23rd July 2025, episode 58. The pills weren't working like before. The pain, the agitation, it was crawling under Tjoppie's skin. He stumbled into Shireen's clinic, eyes wild. Shireen, he slurred, grabbing her arm. I need something stronger, the pain, then unexpectedly the floodgates opened. I saw her, Shireen, kissing him. My Veronique. The raw confession spilled out, laced with painkillers and despair. Gershwin, fueled by jealousy and Veronique's manipulative hints about Tjoppie being dangerous, hatched a plan with a local scully to ambush Alistair's car. Nenna, visiting Hermione, brought hopeful news. Jan's back. He's fighting for you, Hermione. He's got ideas. Marco found Tjoppie in the cellar, pupils dilated, sweating profusely, ranting incoherently about betrayal and vineyards. Panic seized Marco. His dad was high, lost. Thursday, 24th July 2025, episode 59. Tjoppie's descent was horrifying. Marco watched, hidden in the shadows of the barn, as his father traded a valuable antique wine decanter to a seedy contact for a bag of pills. The desperation, the shame on Tjoppie's face. It was gut-wrenching. CJ, pressured by Alistair and seeing no way out, finally chose a side. Alistair's he gave the go-ahead to deal with Elroy, though specifying just scare him proper, hey? Gershwin, trying to impress Veronique, boasted about his plan to take care of Alistair. Veronique, horrified at the amateurish danger, accidentally let slip the truth to Alistair in a frantic phone call trying to warn Gershwin off. Alistair's voice turned deadly calm. Revenge, he promised, is going to be lekker. Jan's prison visit was emotional. He held Hermione's hands through the bars. I promise, he said fiercely, I'm getting you out of this hellhole. We have a plan. Joey and Nenna believe it too. Friday, 25th July 2025, episode 60. The confrontation was inevitable. Alistair stormed Veronique's office at the restaurant. You set your little backy boyfriend on me, he roared. Veronique stood her ground, fire in her eyes. You're dragging my son to hell. You're poison. They hurled accusations, threats, exposing ugly truths about money laundering, CJ's crimes, Veronique's infidelity. Things better left unsaid, echoing in the empty room. Tjoppie, alone in his study, was a sweating, shaking wreck. The withdrawal was agony. He called Veronique, his voice a broken whimper. Veronique, Leafy, please, I need help. The pain, it's killing me. He manipulated her lingering guilt, begging her to bring him just one pill from his secret stash. Alistair, coolly assessing Elroy's bruised face courtesy of his thugs, outlined his grand finale, the wine awards. That's where we hit them. Hard. Gershwin, listening outside Veronique's door, heard her sobbing after Alistair's visit. His heart broke for her, strengthening his resolve. Junior, hearing about CJ's involvement in Elroy's beating, snapped. He drove to Alistair's place and physically dragged a protesting CJ into his car. You're coming with me now, before you end up like him, he yelled, pointing at Elroy's bruised form. Monday, 28th July 2025, episode 61. Gershwin found Veronique crying in the cool room, surrounded by hanging meats. He awkwardly patted her back, which somehow led to a desperate, tearful kiss, a messy collision of his hero complex and her utter vulnerability. Unseen, Alistair's henchmen snapped photos from the delivery bay. Tjoppie, wild-eyed and jittery, tore through Veronique's drawers looking for hidden pills or cash. In his frenzy, he knocked over a heavy crystal decanter. It shattered, and a flying shard sliced Veronique's arm deeply as she walked in. Blood bloomed stark red on her white blouse. Junior, holed up in a cheap guest house with CJ, played voice recordings of Alistair threatening Elroy. Here is lies, CJ. He's using you. CJ, stubborn and scared, retorted. Elroy's a droll. Alistair protects me. He gives me power. Elroy's lies, fed by fear, and Alistair's manipulation sounded more convincing to CJ than his uncle's pleas. Sandy, buzzing with nervous energy, showed Veronique the seating plan for the Wine Awards gala. Veronique barely registered it, staring blankly at the bandage on her arm. Tuesday, 29th July 2025, episode 62. Tjoppie stared at the blood on Veronique's arm, the shattered crystal, the chaos of the ransacked room. A fog of confusion and shame clouded his eyes. I didn't mean... he stammered. Marco burst in, taking in the scene. "Pa!" he cried, rushing to Veronique. "Enough! This has to stop! You need help! Proper help!" Tjoppie just looked broken. Alistair, meanwhile, received the incriminating photos of Gershwin and Veronique kissing. He grinned, a predator spotting weakness. "Perfect," he murmured. "This changes everything. Time to really make them squirm." Jan, trying to inject some normalcy, invited Joey and Nena for a braai at his cottage. "We need to finalize the Hermione surprise," he said, flipping Boerevors. "Legal team's ready to move." Elroy, nursing his wounds and terrified of Alistair's next move, approached him hesitantly. "The boy, CJ," Elroy pleaded. "He's just mixed up." Don't hurt him too bad at the awards, hey? He's not all bad." Wednesday, 30th July 2025, episode 63. The Wine Awards Gala was Soapie's moment of glory. The chandeliers glittered, the wine flowed, the creme de la creme of the winelands were there. Then cack hit the fan. Masked men, led by Alistair, stormed the stage, guns drawn. "Nobody move!" Alistair bellowed. Panic erupted. Elroy, spotting CJ looking terrified near the podium, instinctively shoved him behind a heavy curtain. "Stay down, you dom droll," he hissed. Gershwin, trapped near the bar, saw Alistair grab the microphone. An idea sparked. The fire alarm. He lunged for it. Debbie Lee, across the crowded, terrified room, locked eyes with Tjoppie. He was sweating profusely, eyes darting wildly, not scared like the others, but unhinged. "Shireen," Debbie Lee whispered urgently. "Something's very wrong with Tjoppie." Marco, seeking refuge near a Tanduanu Nati in a corner, whispered a revelation that turned their blood cold. The pills Pa's hooked on. "Alistair's guy supplies them. He's been poisoning him." Elroy, cornered by one of Alistair's thugs, blurted out a desperate promise to lure CJ into the open. "I'll get him. Just don't shoot." Thursday, 31st July 2025, episode 64. Chaos. Sirens wailed in the distance, blue lights flashing through the gala windows. Police swarmed the perimeter, but inside, Alistair was in chilling control, using terrified guests as human shields. Tjoppie, lost in a haze of withdrawal and panic, saw CJ stumble from behind the curtain, shoved by Elroy. In Tjoppie's drug-addled mind, CJ was in mortal danger right now. He let out a guttural roar and charged towards the stage, towards Alistair, who had a gun pointed near CJ. "Get away from my son!" Tjoppie screamed, a wild, misguided hero. Alistair swung his gun towards this unexpected, raging threat. "You? Now?" he sneered, finger tightening on the trigger. Veronique shrieked, "Tjoppie, no!" as Alistair's thug shoved her forward, pressing a gun to her temple. "Tell them the truth, Mevru," the thug snarled for Alistair. "Who you really are. Who financed your first restaurant. Where that money really came from." Gershwin, seeing his chances Alistair focused on Tjoppie, made a break for a fallen security guard's pistol near the fire alarm he'd pulled. A shot rang out, then another. Gershwin cried out, clutching his shoulder, spinning to the floor. Who fired? Was Alistair hit? The screen went black. Dun dun dun. Ah, no, Mency. A shootout. Tjoppie facing down a gun. Veronique's secrets exposed. Gershwin down. And what about poor CJ and the hostages? My must say kind, that cliffhanger. You need to know what happens next month. Make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our August recap. Share this video with every Soapie lover you know. Let's get the whole laney talking. Comment below your theories. Who got shot? Will Tjoppie survive? Can Hermione be freed? Like the video if your heart is still pounding. And if you can, please consider a super thanks donation or joining our membership. It directly helps us keep bringing you these deep dives into the Kelders van Geheime chaos. Thanks for watching.